Good evening and welcome to the San Bruno City Council meeting of February 9th, 2016. Thank the Garden Club for the flowers they always provide for our meetings. Thank you very much. Roll call, please, Carol.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Here.
Vice Mayor Medina.
Here.
Mayor Ruane.
Here.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Here.
Nancy Krause with the foundation. Would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have one announcement this evening, and I'll give it to Councilmember Ibarra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The community has, for the last few years, been involved with something really passionate, and I'm just really glad to be involved with it. And I would like to ask one of the most involved in our community, Uncle Bob Rico, to make the announcement in his
Thank you,
uniform.
Councilmember Ibarra and Mayor and Council. My name is Robert Rico, and I am a proud volunteer for San Bruno Relay for Life, sponsored by the American Cancer Society. American Cancer Society is a nationwide community-based volunteer health organization dedicated to eliminating cancer as a major health problem by preventing cancer, saving lives, and diminishing suffering from cancer through research, education, advocacy, and service. With volunteers like you and me, the American Cancer Society is making a difference in the fight against cancer. Relay for Life is a signature activity and fundraiser for the American Cancer Society and has grown over the last 30 years from a single event in a single community in 1985 to a worldwide commitment to fight against the fight against cancer, with over 4,000 relay events in 24 countries and fundraising totaling over $200 million annually. Relay for Life has raised over $5 billion with a B dollars in 30 years. This year we will hold San Bruno's 7th relay, first started at Skyline College in 2010. Our event will be on Saturday, April 23rd at Cappuccino High School. Relay for Life San Bruno has become a very successful community event and has raised over $250,000. We are actively planning and recruiting for our relay and would like to invite the community to our kickoff party this Thursday at Cappuccino High School Theater from 6:30 to 8 p.m. This is a free event with free refreshments. Please stop by and learn about Relay and join our community in the fight against cancer with the goal of saving lives and celebrate more birthdays. And my hat represents the birthday cake we want and candles. We want to have many more of the people that are now fighting cancer be able to have more birthdays. And we thank you for the time.
Thank you, Robert. We do have a few presentations this evening, a couple of surprise presentations. So it gives me great pleasure in speaking about my friend Carol Bonner. Carol's our city clerk, and she was first elected as the city clerk in November of 2005. And she has served continuously in that office for the last 10 years. Tonight we honor her with recognition of her decade of service to the City Council and to the residents of San Bruno, and also for the dedication and the passion for the work that Carol contributes. Our city clerk's office is often the first point of contact for residents and visitors alike who need information, who have a concern, or who simply want someone to help them understand and access the city services. Carol is a people person, one who enjoys interacting with and helping others, and she readily shares this enthusiasm with all of those she worked with and who passed by her office. Carol is responsible for preparing our City Council meeting agenda packets and for distributing our meeting materials to make sure that the public is well informed about the important business being discussed by the City Council. She works closely and collaboratively with staff and the City Council, and as a longtime resident of San Bruno, Carol is a familiar and welcome participant in many community activities. Carol, on behalf of the City Council and the entire San Bruno community, thank you for your service over the last 10 years. And I have a nice proclamation here. and your pin. And I'd like to give this to you now. Tell us something, Carol.
10 years ago wasn't the first time I ran for city clerk. I ran for city clerk in 1989. I ran for city clerk in 1993. In 1997, I stirred the pot, and I really kind of wanted to do it. And then after that, I made the decision I'd never run again. And I was contacted by our former city clerk, Ed Simon, who asked me to consider running. And my kids were adamantly against it, but my husband said go for it. And I did, and I've loved my last 10 years. It's been wonderful. Thank you very much.
And one more surprise presentation to our city attorney, Mark Zaffarano. He is also being recognized this evening for his 5 years of service to San Bruno as the legal advisor to the city council and city staff. In his role as city attorney, Mark is one of only 2 employees in the city organization that report directly to the city council. Coming from a private legal practice, Mark joined the city staff team in February 2011, shortly after the September 2010 PG&E gas pipeline explosion, at a time when it was essential that he quickly come up to speed, not only with all of the regular legal items of a busy city like ours, but with the unique and challenging issues associated with the disaster and the community recovery. As city attorney, Mark is responsible for a broad range of complex legal issues in the areas of land use, personnel, code enforcement, public safety, contracts, risk management, and a long list of other topics important to this city. In addition to providing wise and practical advice, Mark is a problem solver who is quick to contribute an idea or a suggestion to an important policy and other matters. He is always ready to tackle a good challenge, and he really seems to enjoy it. Mark, we appreciate your legal wisdom and your friendly, positive attitude, which makes it a pleasure to be around you. Thank you for your 5 years of service to the City Council and to the San Bruno community. And I have something for you also.
Impromptu speaking really isn't my forte. I've worked for a lot of cities over the past 25 years, and I have to say that this is far and away one of the best. It's a great city council, the staff is fantastic, and the members of the public, both here at this meeting and that come to our other community meetings, are thoughtful and engaged, and you really can't ask for anything more. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It's been an honor to work for you.
Thank you. And one more presentation this evening. I'd like to welcome Cheryl Olson, the superintendent of the San Bruno Park School District. She's going to give us some updates on the district.
Might need to move that up a little bit. There we go. Mayor Wayne and council members, on behalf of the Board of Trustees of the San Bruno Park School District, thank you for the opportunity to appear again before the council to provide an update on the progress we're making in San Bruno's public elementary middle school system. I addressed the council last fall and hope I may return to you several more times throughout the year to update you. Since my appointment last July, I've been speaking to as many community groups as will have me, and I thank the San Bruno Chamber of Commerce for hosting my monthly superintendent's coffee hours so that I can meet and talk with members of our community about all matters related to the education of our children. The district serves nearly 2,800 San Bruno youth in addition to a growing preschool program, which has attracted nearly $1 million in grant funding to support its innovative approach to better engaging parents in the early development of their children's love of learning. Most recently, the district received another grant from the Peninsula Healthcare District in the amount of $50,000 to continue the operation of the San Bruno Health Center on the Bel Air Elementary School campus. The facility was made possible from previous grant funding. Some highlights of what the health center offers are in cooperation with San Bruno Lions and Apple Tree Dental, the district is able to assist our low-income population of youth vision screening and dental care. The grant funding enables the center to offer programs for parents about health-related issues, including the importance of nutrition as a catalyst for students' ability to focus on learning. We continue to look for avenues of funding to expand the offerings of the health center, which is available to all San Bruno families. Most recently, this one's really exciting, we're exploring a partnership with the Samaritan House to serve families in the area as well. As you know, the district is in fiscal recovery, and I'm very pleased to share with the council tonight that owing to the cooperation and patience of the district teachers, staff, labor unions, the fortitude of the board, and our Associate Superintendent of Business Services, Sean McGinn, we have developed budgets for the next 3 years that are healthy and will remain such if assumptions remain constant. We are no longer deficit spending, and that's a huge milestone. We're very, very happy about that. The district also acknowledges the hard work of the San Bruno Education Foundation and school PTAs for their fundraising efforts to enhance the district's educational programs. One recent example is the foundation's funding making possible an after-school orchestra and band class available to all of our 4th and 5th grade students on the Parkside campus. Over 100 students are enrolled. The foundation is paying for the teachers, but we could always use some help finding more instruments for those kids. Last fall, we brought together 27 stakeholders, including leaders from the community, to develop a new mission statement and a 3-year strategic plan for the district that is focusing on attracting, developing, and retaining highly qualified staff, implementation of 21st century learning strategies, becoming fiscally solvent, and developing, expanding, and implementing quality programs and courses to enable academic success for all students. Additionally, I'm pleased to share several new initiatives we've launched which support the district's strategic plan and mission to educate and empower all students to thrive academically, socially, and emotionally to become contributing members of society. Run to College. That's a program we implemented in the fall to raise student awareness about their potential to advance to college. Every Tuesday, Health Coordinator Marie Lucart and I run to college with all students, kindergarten through 5th grade, at 2 elementary schools per week. Students earn points by running laps that bring them closer to earning their college degrees. At the end of the school year, all the students who have made it all the way to their college, and along the way they've earned their AA, BA, MA, and PhD, they will receive a free college t-shirt to celebrate their achievement. The conversations among students about their futures is really exciting. In fact, today we were at Running Club, and a student was coming through, and it was kind of near the end of his session, and it was hot, and he gets his lap tally, and as he takes off for another lap, he says, "Why does college have to be so far away?" And I just thought that was pretty cute. So we hear teachers comment all the time that they notice improved focus and attention in class since we implemented Run to College and increased stamina among students for physical activity. We actually observe students practicing their running during recess. And importantly, while students are out of class for Run to College, their teachers are utilizing the free class time to work with each other, developing curriculum and teaching strategies that are responsive to the implementation of Common Core state standards. So it really is a win-win for all. Last fall, we created a community partnership advisory committee, including City Council member Rico Medina, Chief of Police Ed Barberini, City Manager Connie Jackson, Chamber CEO Jamie Monizan, to bring together city and business leaders around collaborative efforts to strengthen the district's connection. It really does take a village. What also started last fall as a committee quickly evolved into the new San Bruno Partners in Education Coalition with leaders from the district, Skyline College, Cappuccino High School, and the San Mateo Union High School District around several main goals. The goal we're currently working on together is an initiative to create a seamless continuum of math and English course and grade level learning targets, which will help our students progress through the grades prepared for what comes next after each key juncture. We're backwards mapping, so we started with Skyline and are working through Cappuccino right now. As soon as they finish, which should be about the end of February, then we will bring our math and English teachers from Parkside to work on their piece of the backwards mapping process. And finally, we'll conclude the process with our preschool through 5th grade addition to the continuum. And the coalition is also exploring the possibility of providing a summer camp experience for students at key junctures to help students transition to the next level smoothly and confidently. We're looking to provide the camp to students transitioning from 5th to 6th, 8th to 9th, and then 12th to college. Skyline is interested in supporting the endeavor financially, and Cappuccino High School is interested in hosting the program, making it easier on parents for transportation. Also new to the district is our Difference Makers recognition. At each board meeting, we are honoring our schools and their students, key staff, or volunteers who are truly making a difference in the lives of our San Bruno kids. And the district is now publishing formal reports to the community 3 times a year, which are mailed to every address in San Bruno. The reports are designed to acquaint the community at large with the rich history and the accomplishments occurring every day in our district. And we're very thankful to Nancy Krause for her expertise in the area of public relations and communication. She and graphic design artist Beth Klein have created these for us. And our most recent issue will be in your mailbox this week, so we're excited about that. And we're pleased to highlight in it some of the services our students receive from the district's partnership with the City of San Bruno in the areas of library, recreation, and law enforcement services. And I just have to say that the district is deeply grateful to the city for all you do to enhance the development of the whole child. On April 30th, for the 8th consecutive year, the district invites you and the San Bruno community to celebrate the National Dia de los Niños, Dia de los Libros, Day of the Child, Day of Books. The event will be from 1 to 4, held in the San Bruno Park with participation from all the PTAs, the city library, service clubs, and other nonprofit organizations. Activities will include things like story time, cultural performing groups, health screening, face painting, and much more. So we hope to see you there to celebrate our children and promote their love of reading and learning. And lastly, I want to share about an opportunity the district has to promote literacy in the early years of our students' development. The Big Lift. It's a collective impact collaborative led by the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, the San Mateo County Office of Education, and the County of San Mateo, partnering with dozens of county leaders and community-based organizations to close the achievement gap and improve 3rd grade reading proficiency in the county. As of today, the application process has not yet been announced, but we anticipate that applications will be due by the end of March, early April. And this grant would represent a substantial amount of funding for the district to work closely with the San Bruno Library to promote literacy, most especially among our low-income and minority populations. City Manager Connie Jackson and Vice Mayor Marty Medina have been very supportive of this opportunity for our San Bruno youth, and I would be most grateful to the council if you would formally adopt a resolution to support the district's application and commit a letter of support from the mayor. Such actions would need to occur by early March, if possible, though. And in closing, I want to thank the council, the city manager, police department, library, recreation department, Chamber of Commerce, and our San Bruno service clubs for the encouragement and support that you give our district on a regular basis. Thank you also for the very warm welcome that I have felt since moving into the San Bruno community. This indeed is a city with a heart. Thank you.
Mayor, thank you. Cheryl, the honeymoon is definitely not over yet. It's been 7 months, and you continue to bring great ideas and enthusiasm, and we're hearing it all over the community. Thank you for sending us your newsletter. I read it every month. Ironically, I started running, and I'm a distance runner. I'm an old distance runner. I started running in 6th grade. I'd like to go back to college. So maybe you'll see me on the track one of these days. Thank you.
Through the chair. Again, Cheryl, thank you for coming down. I know you've got a busy day too, but thank you for coming down to continue the open dialogue, communication, and how truly we all are in this together. We all maybe on Acacia or here or at City Hall, but in truly we're representing the same community in many ways. And your and the boards and the staff who've worked so diligent from the time you've come on board from painting the district to all the new programs, activities, and ideas that you have, and reaching out to the community and some of the committees that you've alluded to. Truly, I've heard, as Ken has said, positive, good things that this community has been, but more rightfully so, very proud under your leadership and what you have offered to this district.
Well, Cheryl, you can consider this an open invitation anytime you want to come by. It's a real pleasure to hear about the school district, and I haven't been able to say that for quite a while. So it's quite a difference. So, and I encourage you to work with staff regarding the resolution. I'm happy to sign a letter. So thank you once again. Great. Item number 6, approval of the minutes of the special city council meeting of December 22nd, 2015, and special city council meeting of January 26, 2016, and a regular council meeting of January 26, 2016. Any errors, corrections, or omissions? Seeing none, they'll be approved as submitted. Item number 7 is the consent calendar. All items are considered routine or implemented earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested. I want to tell the council that I'm pulling for later discussion at another council meeting after a closed session. Item number 7F, any action or discussion on the other items?
Mr. Mayor, if I could pull item 7E.
7E, okay. Anything else?
Move to approve the remainder.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the remainder of the consent calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item 7E is accept a resignation from Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee member, declare vacancy, and direct the city clerk to initiate the process for appointment of a new member. Ken?
I just wanted to thank Randy Brace for his, I believe, over 10 years of service on this committee, and to see that he's very instrumental along with all the other committee members. This is one of the newest committees, and probably very productive in this community as far as bike safety and bicycle infrastructure and also pedestrian infrastructure. So I wish him well, and he's going to be tough to replace. So thank you, Randy. With that, I'd like to move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second to approve 7E. All in favor?
Aye.
Next item is a public hearing. We're going to adopt a resolution authorizing the city to join the San Mateo County Peninsula Clean Energy Joint Powers Authority and appointing director and alternate to the JPA board, hold a public hearing, waive the first reading, and introduce an ordinance authorizing implementation of a community choice aggregation program in San Bruno.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. The purpose of this item is to decide whether the city wishes to join a Joint Powers Authority, that's a JPA, with the County of San Mateo and other peninsula cities that would offer residents an alternative way of purchasing electricity from providers other than PG&E. So with us tonight to represent the program is Supervisor David Pine. I'm sure he'd be happy to say a few words and answer any questions. And we also have available Jimmy Tan, who participated in the technical meetings that went on for quite a while with a former council member, Salazar. So this is a complicated topic. There's a lot of materials in the packet. There's a lot of information out there available. I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible, and then please feel free to ask if you have any detailed questions. So the current situation right now, in brief, is that PG&E buys electricity and sells it to customers, to ratepayers. So what's different about this proposal? And what's different is it's the formation of an organization called a Community Choice Aggregation Program, or a CCA. Well, what would that do? Well, that organization would essentially buy electricity directly from suppliers on behalf of its member cities, and San Bruno could participate if they decide to do so tonight. And then that electricity is transmitted to customers using PG&E's electrical transmission system. Based on the information that staff has reviewed, the CCA could buy electricity from greener sources, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and initially at a competitive cost to PG&E. Joining the Joint Powers Authority then, in essence, would give the consumers and the residents of the city a choice to switch from PG&E to purchase energy from the Joint Power Authority at competitive rates, but from greener sources of energy. So this report is going to cover really three basic topics. What was the background of the program? Talk a little bit about some of the benefits and concerns that have been raised about it, and then also talk about the next steps if the city wants to participate. So let's start with a bit of the background. Several years ago, the state legislature passed a law that authorized the formation of these CCAs, Community Choice Aggregation Programs. So Marin County was the first to form one of these entities, and it includes the cities in that county, but then over the last 5 years, a bunch of other entities have joined that CCA. So for example, that now includes Napa County, the city of Richmond, Benicia, San Pablo, and El Cerrito. So it's worked out well for Marin. Other cities have joined. Sonoma and Lancaster down south, the county of Sonoma and Lancaster, formed a CCA in 2015. And we have here in the Bay Area, Santa Clara and Alameda counties also looking into doing this, all as a result of this state law that was passed that authorized counties and cities to do this. So let's talk about how would this work. In essence, the CCA would offer two options for customers. One that provides a minimum of about 35% renewable energy content, scaling up to 50% in 2020. That's more than what PG&E currently provides. The second alternative that consumers would have would be to buy into a program or sign up for a program that provides 100% renewable electricity. So the County of San Mateo did a study, and that study found that rates for the first option, 35% scaling to 50, greenhouse gases and so on, would end up being very competitive with PG&E, about 4% lower initially, rates about 4% lower. And it would be a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Those results were validated recently by an independent study that the city of South San Francisco did in advance of their decision to join the entity. On the second alternative, which is if customers wanted to buy into the 100% renewable energy, that would cost about 2% more for the average consumer. So a little bit more, but then you're buying 100% renewable energy. So the question most people have is, how would this program be implemented? And let's start with the city's role, and then we'll talk about the consumer's role, the resident's role. So first off, the city has to join the JPA if it wants to provide this alternative energy option to its customers. There is no cost to the city to join the JPA. There is no financial liability to the city from any obligations that the JPA enters into. So the agreement that you have in front of you tonight provides financial liability and resources only to the JPA, no liability to the city. It's possible that the city could exit the JPA if you decide to go along with it. You could exit from the program right before launch if the utility rate projections don't turn out to be what the consultants thought they were. So in a way, there's an off-ramp that allows the city and allows all cities to get out if things don't pan out with no financial obligation. If the city joins the JPA, then all of its residents are automatically enrolled in the CCA program unless they opt out. So they're automatically enrolled unless they opt out. And conversely, if you don't join, if the city doesn't join the JPA, then no residents can participate. So you have to join for residents to participate. The city could wait and decide to join later if they wanted to, but that might incur a cost to the city to do that, and that's also subject to the JPA's board approval. So that's on the city side. Let's talk about the residents side. So I mentioned earlier that the residents would automatically be enrolled in the program unless they opt out. So how are they going to know what to do? And the answer is that the CCA will provide up to 4 written notices over a period of 120 days to the residents saying, do you want to stay with PG&E, which you can do, or do you want to opt out of this program? So the choice is you're in the program unless you say, I want to stay with PG&E. That's the choice. There is no cost to the resident, one way or the other. So if the resident says, I want to opt out of the program, I don't like your energy alternatives, I want to stay with PG&E, they're free to do that, and there's no cost to them to make that decision. If the city council directs, the city itself could do some additional outreach. So for example, we could have an article in Focus magazine, there could be something on cable TV, and we're open to any suggestions about how to address that. So if you're a resident and you've decided, I like the green energy alternatives, I like the fact that at least initially it's going to be cost competitive, less expensive, I'm going to go ahead and stay with the CCA. What if you change your mind later? Can you go back to PG&E? And the answer to that is yes, you can go back. You can go back to PG&E. However, if you do that, the requirement is that you stay with them for a year. So in other words, they don't want people going back and forth, sort of what they do with, cell phone bills, where one carrier says, I'll give you a deal on your plan, and go back and forth, switch back and forth. So you have to stay with them for a year. One question that people have is, what can a resident expect to see on their bill if the city does join the CCA? So the bill is still going to come from PG&E. It's going to look like a PG&E bill. There will be a line item on the bill that reflects the charge from the CCA for electricity that the customer is purchasing. The good news is that the program allows both the city and the residents to continue using and maintains all of PG&E's special programs for low-income residents, energy efficiency, and all of those things. So there's no change to any of the delivery of services that PG&E provides the residents. One thing that some folks have pointed out is that recently the Public Utilities Commission adopted a charge to people who are looking to exit the system. In other words, people who decide we like the CCA alternative, there's going to be a charge on their bill for exiting the PG&E system, because of course they're still using PG&E transmission lines and using their services. What is that charge going to be? So the San Mateo County figured out if that charge were to increase substantially over the next year or so, would the program still be cost competitive? And the answer was yes. And that was validated by the South San Francisco City study that was also done. So the PUC increased the rate fairly substantially recently. That is still within the tolerance of the model. It's possible that they could increase it even more, and it would still be within the tolerance of the model that predicted competitive rates for the program. Let's talk just a second about what some of the benefits might be to the city of joining the program. Well, the first benefit is allows residents a choice. They can opt into they're already enrolled in the program if they'd like to be, or they can opt out. So they can select one of 2 renewable energy options, one of them which is cost competitive, the other is really just slightly more. There's also the advantage of local control in that the JPA board is populated, the board members are elected officials from the city council and from other cities and the county. One of the main benefits of the program is that it will help the city and the entire county meet its greenhouse gas emission goals for 2020, and that's important. It's a key feature in the city being able to do that. And as I mentioned before, there's no change in the delivery of power or the services. Let's talk very briefly about some of the concerns that were raised. One of them we've already talked about. The CPUC might allow PG&E to charge a higher exit fee. and we've talked about that already. I think that the studies have shown that it's still within the range that was modeled. However, there is risk in that the CPUC could increase fees even more than the model predicted. There could be other regulatory or legislative changes that might come through that might make these CCAs less attractive. Another risk is the fact that right now the city's been told that power rates are at a very low level. So one advantage of forming this JPA now is they could go out and buy power at rates that are lower than PG&E contracts. Well, eventually, it's predicted those costs for power are going to go up. What's going to happen then? The rates will go up, similarly as they might go up with PG&E. So therefore, there is risk that even though the customer might start at an initially lower rate, that rate could go up just as PG&E rates go up. So what happens if the city wants to join the JPA? What would the next steps be? And the first thing that you'll see on your agenda tonight is to adopt a resolution to join the JPA. The county has already approved that. A number of cities has. Perhaps Supervisor Pine can give us an update on that. And then you have to appoint a board member and an alternate to be on that JPA board. There's then a public hearing and adoption of an ordinance, introduction of an ordinance, first reading tonight. Why do we need an ordinance? It's because that's what's required by state law. State law says if you want to form one of these programs, you have to adopt an ordinance that says that. And for all that to happen before the end of the month, which is the other requirement, the introduction should occur this evening if you're going to, and then adoption at the next regular meeting. So that concludes my report. As I mentioned, Supervisor Pine is here. He may wish to make some comments. You may wish to ask questions, and we're available for any questions or comments, after which we'd recommend you open the public hearing and take any public comment. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Dave, and welcome.
Good evening, Council. It's a pleasure to be here. First, let me compliment Mark on a very, very good summary of the program. I'd like to copy that. It was very well done. And
He's been with us for 5 years.
Yeah. I have the pin to show it.
And thank the staff, Jimmy Tan, Connie Jackson, also Michael Salazar, now Marty Medina for his role on the advisory commission. So we appreciate your due diligence. I know the council has heard a lot about this, and just to kind of give you an update, we have 16 cities that have approved. We have 2 cities tonight, San Bruno and Millbrae, and South San Francisco and Colma tomorrow. So we're going for the grand slam. And I must say that I was confident we would have a lot of interest. But it's exceeded expectations to have this level of interest, and I think it's because the model is compelling. Cleaner energy at competitive rates, customer choice, local control, and having PG&E as that kind of backstop in that kind of worst-case scenario. The benefits of joining now are, of course, we want someone from San Bruno on the board because we have to make a lot of decisions in this initial phase. Just one clarification, Mark, if I may. The default product will probably be closer to 50% clean out of the chute, going up from there. But that's one decision the JPA will have to decide. My personal preference is that it's very important to make sure we have a buffer, price-wise, that not push the green all the way to parity with on price with PG&E. I think it's very important that we launch at a low price and keep that price low into the foreseeable future. So 2 other just updates. The technical study, again, gives us a lot of confidence. But we had another study commissioned to check the technical study at the urging of the county manager and somewhat South City. So that has given us further confidence. So with that, I'm happy to address your questions. And again, I appreciate the time you've taken to dig into this.
Any questions for David this time?
Yes.
Ken?
Or Mark may want to field it too.
No, I'm going to go to the top here. Supervisor Pine, and thank you for the study session last time. And I voiced my concerns that I think it's a great program, and I think it's very innovative for the cities. And to be able to participate in this. What studies have you done for the public? My concern at the study session was that people are going to see these notices and they're going to see county versus PG&E, and they're not going to put it together. I also have a concern. What is it that the individual residents are getting? Because let's say Rico wants to be very energy conscious and very environmentally sound, and he opts in, and maybe he does 100%. Myself, I'm a little skeptical or something, and I opt out totally, and I go, yeah, PG&E, I want my power from them. My bill is going to be different than his. Even on a rate scale, it's going to be different, whether he uses more electricity than I do. I mean, he's going to be charged different. So how is the city, how is the JPA going to determine the costs and all of this? Because his energy, his wire, he might live, and his wires are going to get the same energy that comes in. I'm going to get the same one. His isn't going to be any cleaner than mine. It's all purchasing. So what is it that the resident is really participating in, and what is the incentive for them?
So I think you've asked two questions. One is about the public outreach and how do we make sure that our residents know what's happening. So the goal is to launch in October, and we're in the process now of hiring a firm that will help us do extensive outreach. That's going to be really important, and there will be substantial funds put against that in terms of mailing and radio, all kinds of public outreach, so people know this is coming. By law, as I think you've heard, we have to provide these 2 notices prior to launch, making it really clear what people's choices are, and then we have to do it again 2 times after the launch. So we will have a very robust marketing and communication. Now, will everyone notice that? Probably not. But when they get that first bill, and if they really study it, at first glance it will look the same because it will say PG&E. But if they really look carefully and they see a new entry, Peninsula Clean Energy default product at a lower price than they had before, hopefully that won't cause them a concern. If it does, they can opt out. In terms of you probably already know this, but just state at any event, state it again. Obviously, the clean energy we generate, doesn't come directly to San Mateo County. Of course, it's electrons that are put on the grid. So when, if Councilmember Medina chooses to have a 100% option, and you want to stay with PG&E, I mean, the same group of electrons, are flowing into the county, but because of our purchasing, the grid now the grid has more clean power. So someone once compared it to like an ATM machine. Like you put a $100 bill, in an ATM machine, and then you go across the bay, take the $100 bill out. They're different $100 bills, but so the electrons that are produced obviously are not somehow earmarked here. If that was the question you were asking. So, but again, the amount of clean energy on the grid is up substantially, and there's sophisticated ways for which Peninsula Clean Energy kind of gets credit for that, and then on an annual basis, you have to show a comparison to the ratepayers. What's the green portfolio of PG&E like compared to the green portfolio of Peninsula Clean Energy? What's the price of PG&E? What's the price of Peninsula Clean Energy? So that people, can look at that every year. So I hope that helps address your question.
Any questions for Irene?
Thank you. There was mention of why it's advantageous to opt in now or join the JPA now, but what if things happen later and the city decides that this is not the best thing in the world? Are there penalties for leaving?
Yeah, there's, if the city joins at this point in this February timeframe, like the other cities have, There's really two future opportunities potentially for the city to exit. First, again, to reiterate, customers always can leave, individual customers. But if the city, wanted to, through council action, remove all the residents and kind of take that position. First off, as the council spoke to, we're very confident in these models and in the technical study, but we need to go out to the marketplace this summer with our total load and find out how much green energy we can procure and at what price. And if for any reason we cannot deliver on our promise this summer of this 50% default product or something in that neighborhood, 50% green at a lower price under the JPA agreement, at that juncture, the cities could say, wait a minute, this is not what we signed up for. Again, I think, frankly, I wouldn't want to go forward either. We have to meet both goals, greener, competitive. So then once we launch and say, whatever, a year, 2 years from now, something happens that makes you feel that as a council you want to exit, you can do that, but it's a little more complicated. You have to give some notice. If I remember, it's 6 months. And at that point in time, we will have gone out and bought energy for the city of San Bruno. So there could potentially be we may have to work out some kind of a wind down period to try to recoup those costs, or perhaps the energy markets have shifted so it wouldn't be a cost, but it wouldn't be there'd be a cost. There may be a cost issues that need to be recouped, because just like PG&E, we have to take care of PG&E through the exit fee. It might be necessary for San Bruno to make the Peninsula Clean Energy whole. I'm sorry I wasn't real articulate on that, but
No, I'm sorry, if I may through the chair.
maybe you could
No,
clarify.
correct me if I'm wrong. If the city does decide to exit sometime in the future, they could do that, and various things would need to happen. They'd lose their seat on the board, but the customers are still signed up for the program, right?
Well, it depends on, if you're talking about your municipal accounts, that's simple. But
Right.
And this hasn't happened to date in the history of CCEs, but if, again, 2 years from now, this council or another council said, we're just going to make a decision, we're going to pull all of our residents out. We're not, we want out. We're going to make the decision for our residents. At that time, there'd have to be some kind of unwinding process, because we would have bought the energy for you.
Okay. And then I have just a technical question. On page 48 of our report, it talks about having a representative from the council and an alternate, but it doesn't mention, and I'm bringing this up for a particular reason, it doesn't mention the alternate having the same responsibilities and voting privileges that the regular person does. And I'm bringing this up because in CCAG, the regular person, the regular delegate has the voting, but the alternate does not. So I would suggest you add that part in here, or have it specifically spelled out.
Yeah, I think it's my understanding, and Mark, you probably have a perspective on this too, that the alternate has full voting power if he or she attends in the place of the normal representative.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's what people thought at CCAG as well, and not the water board, but just regular CCAG. And since it wasn't spelled out, the county council said that they did not.
So I believe it is spelled out.
Okay, I read it twice and I didn't see it, but I
Okay.
could be wrong.
Because we appreciate that how many boards people are on, and the JPA agreement does provide that the alternate can be a staff member, and if the staff member is there representing the city that particular evening, yes, they would have the full voting right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Dave? All right, at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Would any members of the public like to address us on this item? Mr. Rico?
Robert Rico, 7th Avenue. I have two questions. Does anybody know what percent of energy PG&E is now supplying that is considered clean energy? And assuming there's thousands of people that opt into or stay in this new program and therefore are not in the PG&E program, as PG&E needs to replace infrastructure, that's going to be as much cost spread over fewer people to pay it, so the people that stayed with PG&E potentially are going to see costs go up more proportionally than if everybody stayed with PG&E? Thank you.
Okay.
So Robert, I think you had two questions. First is, what's the PG&E energy profile look like today? So there's two ways of measuring the clean energy of a utility. One is this so-called renewable portfolio standard, which is the one you hear about most often. And as you'll remember, the governor has said all utilities have to be 50% have renewables, 50% renewables by 2030. Today, PG&E is about 27%. So when we launch, we'll be at 50%. We'll be at the 2030 standard the day we launch. Another way of looking at the cleanliness of the energy production is how much greenhouse gas does the utility produce. PG&E has a higher score there, and in fact is a pretty clean utility because they have 20% is nuclear energy, so that's not considered renewable but doesn't emit greenhouse gas. And then large hydroelectric also is not considered renewable but doesn't emit greenhouse gas. So we'll also exceed them on the greenhouse gas free standard, but not as much. Now, the question you raised about, well, what happens to PG? Is there going to be extra costs for PG&E, and how does that affect, ratepayers? So that is why there's this so-called exit fee that was discussed earlier by the council. So PG&E, has gone out and bought energy and entered into contracts to provide all of San Mateo County. So when we launch, PG&E is going to have extra energy that it's procured on our behalf. And then what they'll do is they'll mitigate that. They'll sell it. They'll put it back on the market. But in the current conditions, their historical contracts, their prices are higher than the current marketplace. So they're basically going to have a cost. And that's exactly what that fee is that was discussed earlier. By law, just finish up. By law, the CPUC and the state, they don't want to leave any of these costs with PG&E. So the thing, though, that has to be kept in mind is even when you include that exit fee, we can still provide the energy lower than PG&E. Oh, yeah. At some point, they're going to have to put in new wires. Oh, yeah, okay. And there will be less people to pay, therefore they're going to see some kind of recovery by PG&E, which is going to cause their cost. Well, remember, on the bill, there's going to be two components. There's the transmission charges will continue to be paid by all of us. So if you choose to participate in Peninsula Clean Energy, there'll be a transmission charge on your PG&E bill that you'll continue to pay, and then you'll pay Peninsula Clean Energy for the electricity. So the transmission charge will remain in place for all the customers because that's where infrastructure costs. Yeah, because we obviously want them to have a very good and up-to-date transmission network. And the other thing too is we have to really partner with PG&E here because we're just doing one thing, and they're doing everything else. They're maintaining the lines, they're doing the billing, they're answering the phone calls. Your energy is not ever at risk of being shut off because they're kind of the backstop. And to date, that partnership has been very effective. We've had our first meeting with PG&E about this, and they know how to do this because they've done it in Marin, they've done it in Sonoma, San Francisco is launching in the spring, they've done it in Lancaster, so they know how to do it. And as I've said a couple of times, I'm glad we're not the first because there's been plenty of there's a good track record.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to address us on this item? If you close the public hearing, you'll be precluded from addressing the council on this item. Okay, any action by the council?
Move to close.
Second.
Motion to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any action by the council at this point in time or discussion? The first action item is to waive
So
the
it would
first
be
reading.
to adopt a resolution
Okay,
authorizing the city to join the San Mateo County Peninsula Clean Energy JPA and then appointing a director and an alternate.
okay. Someone like to introduce that resolution?
I'll introduce that resolution, what he said.
That was Councilmember Rivera,
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell. Aye. Councilmember Medina,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina,
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. And
And then you've got an
the
ordinance.
vice mayor has agreed to continue as our member, and Councilmember Rico Medina has agreed to be the alternate. Okay. And then our next item is to waive the first reading.
Yes, waive first reading and introduce the ordinance.
Okay. Ken,
So moved to waive the first reading?
is there a second?
Second. Second.
Motion second to waive the first reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, would someone like to introduce the ordinance?
I'll introduce the ordinance for adoption.
Councilmember Rivera,
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell,
Aye.
Councilmember Medina,
Aye.
Councilmember Vice Mayor Medina,
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dave. Item number 9 is public comment on items not on this agenda. It is the council's policy to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. The Brown Act prohibits the council from discussing or acting upon any matter not agendized pursuant to state law. Would anyone like to address the council under public comment? Just tell us your name and your street, please.
I'm Reverend Dr. Nancy Landauer. I live 651 Linden, San Bruno. And I've addressed you on a couple other occasions. I'm here with other people again tonight to ask the council again about the recent appraisal and take action on the concerns raised by many of the residents about the hotel. And we're concerned that you must provide quality union jobs. Myself and my fellow San Bruno residents believe that we have a right to know how much our own property is worth, as well as the right to review public documents. Because of the city's continued refusal to release these documents, we have been forced to file a lawsuit today with the Superior Court of the State of California under the California Public Records Act, requesting the release of this basic public record. I'm really hopeful that the city will release this information shortly so that we can have a truly transparent and democratic and participatory process as the city makes this important decision, whether and under what conditions to build the Crossing Hotel. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Just tell us your name and your street, please.
Hi, good evening, Council. My name is Marco Durazo, and I live on 2nd Avenue here in San Bruno. Just to follow up some comments about the hotel development, and really in the deepest respect for the kind of legal constraints that the council's under and the timeline that you need to abide by regarding the release of specific information. I just sense that there's a disconnect between the dialogue and the information that can be legally shared, and really the community perspective on wanting more information. Again, I completely respect the fact that there's information that can be shared and there's a specific time to share information, but I think simply saying, trust us, we have the best interest in mind, you'll get it when you get it kind of thing, I think just respectfully is just not good enough. And I think there's what I would respectfully ask you to pursue a variety of ways of how you can share information so that the folks are coming to this meeting who really want the best interests, who really come to this meeting with the best interests of San Bruno in mind, are not feeling turned away, are not feeling like they have to file lawsuits, and really feeling like they're not being heard. I don't think that's the case. I think the council is very aware and sympathetic to the concerns of the community, but there is a disconnect, and I sensed it at the last council meeting, and I think there's a variety of things that can be done to make sure that the public is really informed of what's going on to this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Ryan Mersney, Keynes Avenue. I wish to address the issue of the renewal of the current city manager's contract. I'm not sure what the city council and Ms. Jackson are trying to hide, but before you pulled it from the agenda tonight, the proposed contract has not been made publicly available. I don't understand what legal loophole you're using. Under Ms. Jackson's mismanagement, San Bruno Cable is now nearly $10 million in debt, which is over $230 per resident, not per subscriber, but per resident. San Bruno residents pay the second highest water rates in the Bay Area. The condition of our streets are rated among the poorest in the Bay Area, and after many months, there is still no solution to the Crestmore Street lighting issue. And the list goes on and on of our incompetence and mismanagement. We have all heard the excuses about a recession that is long over, a gas explosion that was more than 5 years ago, and other excuses that just magically appear. Has she ever accepted responsibility for anything? I understand our current contract pays for her more than $230,000, not including benefits, per year. The council now wants to give Ms. Jackson a pay raise. You also wish to forgive a $20,000 loan Ms. Jackson owes the people of San Bruno. I would suggest you could easily find someone else to run our city just as badly for a lot less money. It has been said that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. The City Council renewing Ms. Jackson's contract over and over again seems to have proven that adage. I am confident someone will publicize any council member's vote in favor of renewing Ms. Jackson's contract, and it will be an issue in the next election. Thank you.
Next, please.
Hello, my name is Connie Spearing, and I'd also like to speak on the Crossing Hotel development proposal. I bring a letter signed by members of the Unitarian Universalists of San Mateo County, expressing our concern and our support for the process of transparency in this process. It is still a negotiation, and we understand that, and we want to lend our support to the people of San Bruno as they try to find a way to develop the property and make sure that there are quality jobs for the people of San Bruno and others who live on the peninsula. We feel that we're all close neighbors here, kind of huddled around the airport in the North Peninsula area, even though myself, I live in Millbrae, just over the line. But it will affect all of us, this development, so we want to present this letter to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll go on to right under conduct of business. Item A, receive a report on the automated license plate reader used by the San Bruno Police Department. Chief?
How about now? We good? Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. On July 14th of 2015, the council adopted a resolution authorizing the acceptance and use of a grant-funded mobile automated license plate reader, otherwise known as an ALPR. At the time the resolution was adopted, the council requested that a status report be provided to gauge the effectiveness of this resource. The ALPR was installed on a marked San Bruno Police Department patrol vehicle in mid-August of 2015. This vehicle is driven by uniformed patrol officers on a daily basis in all areas of the city. The license plate reader continually records license plates as the patrol officer goes about his or her daily patrol duties. Unless found to be part of a criminal investigation, This data is automatically purged after a 12-month period. It is important to note that only the license plate itself is retained. No information regarding the registered owner of a vehicle is stored. Should an investigator wish to obtain information regarding a registered owner of a vehicle, he or she must have a legal reason to do so and query a separate Department of Motor Vehicles database. The reader does, however, have access to a database that includes the license plates of vehicles that have been reported stolen, vehicles that have been used in the commission of a crime, or are associated with missing persons, or persons wanted for violent and/or felonious offenses. Since installed in August, our ALPR resource has located a total of 28 vehicles that have been entered into a statewide database as stolen. This has resulted in 4 arrests, as well as the return of these vehicles to their rightful owners. In addition to the recovery of stolen vehicles, the data received from our device, as well as others within the law enforcement community, has resulted in effective and proactive resolution to criminal acts that have occurred within San Bruno. San Bruno police detectives use this data from various ALPR databases on a weekly basis. The information obtained from these databases has been extremely useful in locating victims, witnesses, and suspects. In September of last year, ALPR data was used to assist in identifying the suspect in a robbery that occurred in the area of Santa Lucia and Linden Avenues. This information was corroborated by a witness, and the suspect was later arrested. In October, a subject reported his brother missing and suspected that he may be suicidal. The reporting party was unable to provide a specific address for his brother. A San Bruno police dispatcher was able to obtain a list of vehicles registered to the subject who had been reported missing. A subsequent ALPR database search was conducted utilizing the license plates that were discovered. This inquiry led to the discovery of the subject's vehicle parked in Millbrae near the San Bruno border. The missing person was located and provided with the necessary resources that he needed. In November, while investigating a fraud and burglary at the Tanforan Shopping Center, a San Bruno police officer confronted suspects who were fleeing from the scene in a vehicle. In doing so, they attempted to strike the officer with their vehicle. The vehicle successfully fled the scene. The license plate from the vehicle was queried to the ALPR database, and it was determined that the vehicle frequented an area in San Francisco. The vehicle was later located in that area, and a suspect was arrested. Earlier this month, the ALPR identified a stolen vehicle occupied by 2 subjects. These subjects were arrested for a number of charges, including the possession of stolen property, possession of burglary tools, possession of methamphetamine, resisting arrest, and felony probation violation. The fact that those who steal cars and are also involved in numerous types of crimes that impact the quality of life of San Bruno residents make the ALPR an extremely valuable resource. Just last week, the ALPR proved extremely valuable in assisting the South San Francisco Police Department in an incident that involved an officer-involved shooting. A portion of that incident occurred in a parking lot. Prior to having access to an ALPR, personnel would have been assigned to write down license plates by hand, delaying the processing of the scene and holding up the owners of those vehicles until the lot could be reopened. We were able to provide this assistance to the South San Francisco Police Department in a timely manner by simply driving through the parking lot. The data collected by the ALPR unit assigned to the San Bruno Police Department is made available to law enforcement agencies throughout the county and Bay Area. The data is used regionally on a daily basis to assist with investigations and to locate and recover vehicles that were stolen in San Bruno and driven to other jurisdictions. Additionally, data from within this system is used by law enforcement agencies throughout the county and region to work collaboratively to solve crimes such as burglary and robbery. The police department values the impact the ALPR has had on making the police department more effective and efficient. Additionally, we are grateful for the support of the council in accepting this valuable resource. We will continue to seek grant-funded resources, including license plate readers, that will afford us the opportunity to serve those who reside in, work in, and frequent our city. The deployment of this resource continues to have no fiscal impact on the police department or city budget. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Good. Any question for the chief? Marty? Marty?
Chief, how many more would you like?
The current license plate reader is affixed to a patrol vehicle. It's an extremely valuable asset on a patrol vehicle, and many feel that the next generation of patrol vehicles down the road it'll be a standard piece of equipment. So the answer was we'd love to have them on all of our vehicles. However, I believe that's cost prohibitive. There's also another use for the license plate reader that's not affixed to a vehicle. There are mobile license plate readers. There's the option to have fixed license plate readers. As I mentioned when I came to you in July and when this resource became available, there's really a two-pronged approach to its effectiveness. One is real-time in locating stolen vehicles or those folks that are wanted and associated with that vehicle, and the other is an investigative resource. So we strategically try to use the license plate reader when we have areas where are susceptible or vulnerable to burglaries or other types of crimes, so we can, use it as a lead. Otherwise, we'd be shooting a needle or looking for a needle in a haystack. So I guess the answer to your question is a difficult one. We value that resource very much, and we're always looking for opportunities to expand the program. The data we collect not only benefits our agency, but our neighbors. So a specific number is difficult, but we're always looking for opportunities.
Great. Anyone else? It's been a great asset for you and for the city, so.
And thank you for your support. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Very much so. Thank you very much, Chief. Item 10B, adopt a resolution authorizing the purchase of one Ford Explorer Fire Chief vehicle from Bill Knight Ford of Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the amount of $30,000 and appropriating $30,000 from the general fund.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. Before you is a report requesting authorization and funding for a new fire chief vehicle. Guess I'll restart. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. Before you is a report requesting authorization and funding for a new fire chief's vehicle. The request is necessary due to the recent developments regarding the fire consolidation. From 2005 to 2015, the City of San Bruno has shared fire service administration with the City of San Bruno and has been pursuing consolidation with both Central County and Millbrae Fire Departments. During this time period, San Bruno and Millbrae have shared both a fire chief and most recently a deputy fire chief and the vehicle assigned to these positions, which were owned by the City of Millbrae. Subsequently, Millbrae began contractual fire services with Central County on December 29, 2014. On December 31, 2015, the Central County Fire Board decided to cease consolidated fire service efforts with the City of San Bruno, which has the City of San Bruno transitioning into a standalone fire department. San Bruno will no longer rely on the previously shared vehicles and equipment owned by the City of Millbrae. Previously to the consolidation effort, the San Bruno Fire Chief has been assigned a vehicle equipped to respond to emergencies and for everyday use for attending meetings throughout the city and county. If approved, this new fire chief vehicle will be reinstated to the city's vehicle fleet and will be added to the equipment reserve account moving forward. The new vehicle was not considered for funding in the 15-16 operating budget because the decision by the Fire Board came in December, well after the 15-16 budget was approved. Therefore, the Fire Department was requesting that $30,000 be appropriated from the general fund for the purchase and outfitting of a new fire chief's vehicle. That's the end of my report, and I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Good. Any questions for the chief or action by the council?
No question, other than we have to update the nameplate.
Yes.
You're no longer the deputy.
What's that?
You're no longer the deputy.
Yes.
Fire chief. You can call it San Bruno interim chief or something like that. But anyway, if there's no comments or questions from my colleagues, go ahead and introduce the resolution for adoption.
Councilmember Rico Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Marty Medina.
Aye.
Mayor Wayne.
Aye. Item 10C, adopt a resolution approving a contract with Pacific Gas and Electric Company, PG&E, in the amount of $37,109 for engineering, tie-in, and meters and inspection fees related to the streetlight loop conversion in the Crestmore neighborhood.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Harry Burrows, and I'm the city's project manager for the Crestmore Reconstruction Project. The item before you tonight is a contract with PG&E to provide services related to the streetlight replacement within the Crestmore Glenview neighborhood. That, just to be clear, that's the Crestmore 2 neighborhood. The repair and replacement of the streetlight system is part of the overall reconstruction system. The city committed to the neighborhood to explore the replacement of the streetlights with new decorative LED streetlights. The existing streetlights within the neighborhood are typical of a lot of the residential neighborhoods within San Bruno, which are the 25-foot tall poles with the cobra heads. What's proposed within the neighborhood is a series of decorative 16-foot tall streetlights with what are called acorn tops or post tops, very similar to and look very similar to what's in downtown San Bruno along San Mateo Avenue. The streetlights are shorter. The new streetlights are shorter than the existing streetlights, and because of that, the spacing needs to be increased. The current design for the streetlight system has new streetlights essentially placed midpoint between the existing streetlight locations that are out there. So the new system will put new decorative streetlight poles in the locations where the existing tall streetlights are, and then midpoint between them will be new poles as well. So it increases, essentially doubles the amount of streetlights within the neighborhood to 95 total. So we have about 42 new locations of streetlights within the neighborhood, and staff has done a significant amount of outreach and discussion with the folks who are going to get the new streetlights in front of their houses. Out of those 40 plus new locations, there are currently 2 residents that have some concerns, objections to those locations. We've tried to work with many of the residents to adjust them. Unfortunately, as you can imagine, when you adjust one location, it has a cascading effect throughout the rest of the neighborhood. There's at least in these 2 locations, we've talked with our streetlight designer, and they don't feel comfortable eliminating the streetlights in these locations. One's in the middle of a curve, and for safety reasons, they would prefer that streetlight remain. So we still have some resolution that's needed at those 2 locations prior to us installing those streetlights. The other thing is, this new streetlight system, in addition to providing new poles and lamps, we will be replacing the 2 regulated output circuits within the neighborhood that are, as I believe the council is well aware, subject to frequent outages and heavy maintenance. So part of the project will include replacement with direct circuits of those older regulated output circuits. The contract before you is with PG&E to provide engineering to do the actual connections with the new direct circuits and the meters, and to provide inspection services for the work that's being done. Our consultant, our streetlight consultant, has reviewed their contract, as well as staff has reviewed it, and we feel that it is ordinary and customary for work of this type. As I said, the streetlights are part of the Phase 4, what we're calling the Phase 4 improvement project, surface restoration project for the neighborhood. That project is in final design stages right now. We're trying to get that project advertised later this month or the beginning of March. The current schedule is to award the contract in the first meeting of April. That would have construction starting on or around May 1st or shortly thereafter. We anticipate that it's going to be about a 9-month construction period, so that'll put completion of this project into the first quarter of 2017. The last project beyond this within the neighborhood, as part of the core neighborhood reconstruction projects, is the replacement of the Earl Glenview Park and the replanting of the Upper Canyon, Crestmore Canyon. That project, just last Wednesday, we held the first planning meeting, what we call a visioning meeting, with the community for that park. A follow-up meeting is scheduled in March. There will probably be at least 1 meeting or 2 meetings after that. That will culminate in a concept park plan that will be brought back to the council, hopefully sometime late summer. After that, we're hoping to go into final design for the park, with the park construction then kicking off shortly after or dovetailing into the end of the surface improvement project within the neighborhood. With that, I conclude my presentation and welcome any questions.
Any questions for Harry at this time? Ken?
Thank you. Harry, I find it hard to believe that for 95 new streetlights, the PG&E is only charging $37,000 in addition to inspection and engineering and such. It's like, where else are they going to get paid? I mean, is that going to be passed on to maybe not the ratepayers, but possibly the city? As far as that new infrastructure?
Yeah.
I mean, are they amortizing it over time or something?
Yeah. So the actual work that PG&E is, the contract is for engineering, for what's called tie-ins and meters, and for inspection during construction. The actual physical work that needs to be done, well, first off, the engineering was done by our consultant primarily as a applicant design project. So PG&E didn't really do the design work themselves. They just checked the design and blessed it, signed off on it, okay? Our consultant's a registered electrical engineer, and it's called an applicant design process, and it's done fairly frequently. So that saved us some money. Additionally, the physical work that PG&E has to do out in the field is really just connecting some wires together and putting a meter in. It's not a whole lot of work that PG&E crews will have to do. Most of the conduits, new electrical wires, pole boxes, and everything to support the new streetlight system will be done by the city's contractor.
Okay. A related question is that, as we get closer to finalizing the restoration of this neighborhood, and you've updated us on the park and now the lights and stuff. How does this affect the infrastructure, the surface infrastructure, like the sidewalks and the curbs? Because there's been some concern amongst us that maybe we don't need to replace the entire surface infrastructure, and if that's being at least discussed or considered.
Well, currently the plans are to replace the curb gutter sidewalk and redo the streets as part of the surface restoration project. We are right now, and this is one of the reasons we're not out to bid as we speak. I would love to be out to bid right now, but we're doing what I call value engineering. We're going through our design right now to see what areas we can, I won't say cut back on, but maybe do differently to save money. That includes things like, instead of doing a full reconstruction of the roadway, which is what the original design was and recommended by the geotechnical engineer originally, to go in and essentially dig out the road down to a depth of about 12 plus inches, bring in rock, compact it, rock trucks and water trucks and graders in the street, and then put the paving on top of it, which, as you can imagine, is going to be very disruptive to the residents, especially when you can visualize that road being torn up with everyone having to get in and out of their driveways at the same time at the end of the days. We're going to bid, including in the bid, an alternative called cold in place recycling, which is a process where you have a machine that essentially goes through, chews up the asphalt in the front end, out the back end, it mixes it with new asphalt and enters into a paver, and out of the back end comes a nice new asphalt. So that's one of the things we're exploring as part of this. Unfortunately, we have looked into alternatives for replacing the curb gutter and sidewalk, but because we have to rebuild back the driveways to meet ADA, American with Disabilities Act requirements, it's very difficult for us to rebuild back what's out there. So we're having to replace it.
Hopefully the neighborhood understands that, because that's just as disruptive, I'm sure. Thank you.
Anything else? Any action on this item?
I'll introduce the resolution.
Councilmember
Hold
Rivera.
different clerk. Aye.
Councilmember Medina. Councilmember Rico Medina.
He says aye. Aye. Yeah.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Marty Medina.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.
Thank you.
Last item for conduct of business, adopt a resolution approving the installation of pedestrian safety improvements at the Cherry Avenue, Grundy Lane intersection.
Good evening, honorable mayors and members of the City Council. The item in front of you tonight is in regards to the pedestrian improvements at the intersection of Cherry Avenue and Grundy Lane located at the Bay Hill Business Park. Google YouTube currently occupies 2 buildings at 900 and 901 Cherry Avenue and is also performing tenant improvements at 1000 Cherry Avenue. They expect these tenant improvements to be completed soon, and the building is anticipated to be occupied within the next 2 to 3 months. When all 3 buildings are occupied, they anticipate a total of 1,200 employees working within these 3 buildings. And this intersection of Cherry Avenue and Grundy Lane is used by employees as well as the residents throughout the day. The existing intersection consists of a crosswalk on Cherry Avenue that is approximately 80 feet wide across the roadway and is uncontrolled. The crossing is considered an uncontrolled crosswalk because it doesn't have any traffic lights or stop signs. At Grundy Lane, there is an existing stop control there. Google approached the city staff in late 2015 to discuss the pedestrian improvements as they were concerned about the safety of their employees crossing the intersection and expressed interest in improving it. Google representatives submitted conceptual design plans for city staff review. The improvements that Google presented included addition of new crosswalks at the southern end of Cherry Avenue, installing rectangular flashing beacons at the crossings across Cherry Avenue and Grundy Lane, adding high visibility striping, installing pedestrian warning signs and curb ramps, and adding new street lighting. So staff reviewed the proposed conceptual improvements and provided recommendations to Google, which they incorporated as shown in this slide. The recommended changes included removing the northern crosswalk since a new crosswalk is being proposed at the southern end. And also, staff recommended the removal of the pedestrian warning across Grundy Lane, which is not required due to existing stop control. Then on January 6th, the conceptual design improvements were brought to the Traffic Safety and Parking Committee meeting for the determination and recommendation to the City Council today. The TSPC members discussed the safety improvements and recommended to keep the existing northern crosswalk so pedestrians have an option to choose where they would like to cross. The TSPC members and police department also discussed the installation of a median barrier along Cherry Avenue to prevent illegal mid-block crossings. The recommendation for installing a median barrier was based on observations by the San Bruno Police Department that pedestrians are frequently crossing mid-block on Cherry near the Google and Walmart offices. The police department has observed over 40 pedestrian violations for crossing outside these crosswalks, and they also met with both Google and Walmart administration on 3 separate occasions since July 2015 to discuss the pedestrian crossing issues. Although these companies have agreed to send out company-wide communications advising staff of the required use of the crosswalk, they have a little effect. But currently, staff is recommending the council to adopt a resolution to approve the installation of the pedestrian safety improvements since Google is anticipating to occupy the building at 1000 Cherry within the next 2 to 3 months. Google has agreed to perform the detailed design and construction of these improvements at no cost to the city, and staff will be reviewing the design for compliance with city standards prior to issuing an encroachment permit to Google for installation of these improvements. And maintenance of these improvements will be the city's responsibility after a 1-year construction warranty period. And in regards to the median barrier, staff is recommending to defer the implementation until the city determines the type of barrier that should be placed in the median. And staff can discuss the improvements with Google and Walmart for the installation of these barriers. As for the fiscal impact of this project is limited to the staff time for review of the design submittal since Google will pay for all the costs of the improvements and city's inspection cost. This concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff on this? Ken?
Thank you, Jimmy. You answered most of my questions, and actually part of my last question, which was the median barrier. I'd like to have some public review, whether it's planning commission or something, or even the city council, so that we can get some idea of what is being proposed. It's the first time something like this is taking place, and I've seen nice decorative barriers, low barriers that have hindered crossings.
in San Francisco and such, too, so that.
I had a little hunch that there
Oh,
was
you
gonna be
got-
some
you got
questions.
something, huh?
Yeah, I do. I do have some questions. This is the existing layout that's there, right? There's no center line, the median's barrier. But this is what Railroad City had installed over in Veterans Boulevard. It's about a 3-foot high fencing. And this is what San Carlos has on San Carlos Avenue, some wires and some posts, preventing people from blocking. But it's something that we can definitely look into, the type of barriers to install. Mhm.
Anything else for staff? Action by the council? Sorry.
I just had a quick.
Just tell us your name and your street.
Room for public comment. Gerald Poskey, Transportation Planner for Google. Just to say, we're happy to be here, happy to be engaged. We always look for ways to improve pedestrian and bicycle safety. We saw this opportunity, and we've been happy to work with staff. As was pointed out, we would be willing to fund and implement it fully at our cost. And we would just say that right now, when there's not a safe, well-lit crosswalk, it's not surprising that people take the safety into their own hands. And hopefully with the installation of 3 well-lit crossing opportunities, that we would give that a shot before we try to put something that might be perceived as a barrier, not as attractive as the landscaping we have today.
Great. Thank you very much. Should be pointed out, too, that Google is bringing about another 900 people when the other Cherry Avenue buildings open up here pretty quick, so it's pretty important.
And mine is just a question maybe to the city manager going forward. And I know very clearly it says the city is limited, city is limited to staff time for review, and it's limited. So if we maybe in the future staff reports can quantify what limited means, 20 to 40 hours, and I'm not talking dollars because I know it depends on which staff, but just give us some more clarity for
Sure.
future
We'd be
staff
happy
reports.
to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else or action on this item?
I'll adopt the resolution.
Councilmember Ibera?
Aye.
Councilmember Rico Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Marty Medina?
Aye.
Mayor Ruane?
Aye. Item 11, reports of commissions, boards, and committees. There aren't any this evening. 12, comments from council members. We're going to receive an oral report from Vice Mayor Marty Medina and Councilmember O'Connell on their attendance at the League of California Cities New Mayors and Council Members Academy. You're on.
I'm on. So, January 20th through the 22nd, we went to Sacramento and spent 2.5 days of figuring out, hearing about what it takes to be a council member. How to conduct yourself at the city council, the legal aspects to be aware of, a lot of land use planning, general plans, CEQA, zoning, how to get along with your city manager and staff. That was also one of the topics, and they broke it up into around, I would say, 6 to 8 different topics and study sessions that we were able to kind of talk and hear different speakers from all across the state. And they saved the best for last. Basically, it's all the financial information and audits. And they tried it in 2 hours to the newbies. It was just really overwhelming, but it was very educational. And I like to thank my fellow colleagues for allowing me to attend, and I appreciated it very much.
Thank you. Irene?
Well, thank you. Mine wasn't the new part, mine was the refresher part. I haven't been for 19 years, and I encourage everyone to go once in a while just to hear different viewpoints and some updates on laws that we may not be familiar with. One of the things that we're all kind of anxiously waiting is the case study about Facebook. And if you have a Facebook page and you are either an elected official or a person who works under or is regulated under the Brown Act, if you post an opinion that has to do with what you are doing, if you're a council person or a planning commission, if you post your opinion on Facebook and just leave it at that, it might be considered a serial meeting, which is illegal under the Brown Act, because your friend can read what you wrote and tell another council person or another planning commissioner, that planning commissioner can tell it. So it's one of those things. So there's no case law about it yet, but we're all eagerly awaiting the final opinion about that. Yeah. So just be aware of that, and as Mr. Marty Medina said, it was very interesting, and again, you should all think about taking it one more time just to hear the different viewpoints, because they have council people from different cities who talk about how their particular cities are run, maybe slightly different from everyone's. One of the interesting pieces I wanted to bring up, there's a council, I think it's Mountain View, that a council person can put something on the agenda, but the rule is it can only take staff 1 hour to present. So if you have this grand idea, but it takes staff 20 hours to figure it all out for you, that's not allowable under their kind of code of conduct. So maybe some of these things that Marty and I are bringing back, we could talk about at some study session or something later on.
Great,
So anyway,
thank you.
it's good.
Good. Let me see, we're going to go into, well, let me ask staff, do you think we have enough time for a closed session and the discussion of cable?
I would suggest that we make a priority out of completing the study session, and in earlier consultation with the city attorney, we agreed that if the council chooses to defer the closed session, the topic that we had intended can wait for another 2 weeks or for some time during that interim for your consideration. So we would recommend that it is important to complete the study session that we did not complete earlier this evening.
Okay.
And would be happy to defer the closed session.
Okay, very good. So we will go back into study session, get an update on the cable, status of cable, and we will adjourn to the next regular council meeting after that, to be held on February 23rd, 2016 at 7 p.m. right here. I want to wish everyone a very safe and happy President's Holiday and a very happy Valentine's Day. So, meeting adjourned.